With this, move on to our next in this new era, in this new normal, where technology has played a very crucial role and propelled the digitization of not just education but various other sectors. I would like to guest individual, an innovator in education, and also a renewable energy expert, Mr. M. Bharat, who University. Mr. Bharat has is very his work is most majorly about towards the sustainable energy, be it renewable energy or the energy from the other renewable energy sources, and he has done some extensive work in the solar power generation and waste chemical treatment, and in the past experience 60 megawatt gas based power plant, and his most recent stints were of Atlanta's mayor's office and also marketing immersion in Sheraton, Taiwan. Thanks for joining us.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. And my voice is not patchy, right? Because sometimes when you're speaking, I'm not able to hear you well. I don't know if it's a problem with my internet or yours, but if you can hear me okay, then I'll get started.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and good evening to the panelists. It's great to see organizations from across the country here. Just a brief background, I'm president of a deemed to be university in South India called GITAM. GITAM is a 23,000 student organization, and we have 3 campuses in Visakhapatnam, Hyderabad, and Bangalore. GITAM was founded by my grandfather about 40 years ago. He passed away in an accident in 2018. I've stepped into this role in 2018 November. So it's been just a little over 2 years now that I've been here. I've worked in GITAM for 9 years since 2011, and I've had some exposure to the higher ed space for almost a decade. So my audience, as Mr. Sudhir states, is leaders from universities and educational organizations across the country and governments. I have messages for both, and maybe I'll share my story and maybe that will help. So when I moved back to India from the US as a young engineer and I started working in GITAM, as the grandson of the president, I was given access to information that maybe many others did not. And I was not very happy with what I saw. And over the my 4-year stint at GITAM from 2010 to 14, as I kept finding issues and I kept peeling off the layers, I think the critical issue internally was the lack of high quality leadership and the impact that leadership had on all of these elements of excellence, equity, employability, etc. And when I say leadership, I think the challenge has been, and maybe there are some academicians here, I don't want to rub you the wrong way, but all your academic career, you are rewarded for expertise and depth into any one particular domain. But when you transition to a leadership role, you're expected to be a generalist, and you're expected to be someone who inspires and leads others, who empathizes with others, who understands their issues. In our organization and maybe many other organizations in the country, most high quality academicians have transitioned to leadership roles, and not many of them have excelled in the leadership role. And once you have an incompetent or an unsuitable leader leading a department, institution, or a university, then that's the beginning of the end. And probably a lot of the issues that come as an outcome of that are maybe unequitable access and lack of employable students, lack of excellence in Indian organizations where there's no single university in the global 100 rankings even today. So I was really torn by that, and I really wanted to make a difference. But I was 22, 23 years old then, and I left. I went to the US. I pursued graduate education, and I moved back to India. And 2 years ago, when my granddad passed away and I stepped into this role, I was very clear that whatever challenges that I saw as an insider, as an outsider in the higher education sector has to be impacted. And the four fundamental tenets that I followed at the time was, and which I still do today, is of a single Indian organization in the Global 100 rankings is a cause for inspiration that why can't we build one? And the vision at GITAM is that we want to become a Global 100 university by 2040. And the second, as I had mentioned earlier, was leadership. And leadership has to be transformed, and every leader has to be in the role where they can excel. So whether it be on academic leadership, administrative leadership, functional roles like HR, IT, finance, any of these things, we need the best of talent to come in. As far as the functional roles are concerned, talent is readily available in the country relative to the academic leadership roles. Compensation may be challenging, but otherwise you can still bring them in. Academic leadership, much harder to find, but there are still good leaders. In the last 2 years, we have brought in close to 40 leaders in various capacities from various parts of the country, coming from industry, academia, public sector, private sector, India and abroad. This is out of a leadership group of close to 150 leaders at GITAM. And these 40, with this renewed vision of building a global 100 university, are empowered and someone that I work closely with to transform the organization internally and from the external perspective. The third thing is we may bring great leaders and we may speak about a grand vision, but if we don't transform the systems and processes to enable these leaders, then their potential is limited. So bringing more transparency, more agility in the way we take decisions has been a critical part of how we operate. And that's where I think the functional aspects like HR, IT, technology, finance, all of these we've been transforming on a rapid pace. And the last and most importantly, GITAM is an acronym. It stands for GITAM Gandhi Institute of Technology and Management. My grandfather, Dr. Murthy, was an avid follower of Gandhiji. I think unfortunately today in the society around us, values of truth, resilience, service to society, kindness are few and far in between. And if we need to really live by those values, instill those values in our children, then we need to walk the talk. And as a president, I think that begins with me and every leader that is part of the organization. And that's been a constant part of our debate. And it's not easy. I think if we hold a mirror to ourselves every day, there's a lot of hypocrisy. And we say one thing, we do something else. And that is all pervading, from leaders to students to faculty to society. And it's not, and in that, I think I try really hard to hold myself accountable to my word and to the way I act. And we've begun on this journey, I want to say, we're barely scratching the surface, but these 40 leaders who've come to us have all come because they believe in the vision and they believe in what can be achieved if good people come together. And for many private universities, I think in the country, there are many intentions or outcomes that you have, but I'm sure all of you want to excel, and I'm sure all of you want to do well and bring the best students and give the best outcomes. So I think the root cause analysis would be the critical way for us to address anything. I think the surface level symptoms are poor employability standards, poor intake talent, and poor faculty, and all of these things. And I think that is prevalent in our ecosystem. But what are we doing to change it? Sometimes I often have arguments with senior academic leaders where they always keep pointing fingers at things that are wrong, that we are not getting good students, we're not finding good faculty, the government is not letting us do what we want to do. And because of those reasons, we're not able to transform. And I completely disagree with that argument. For me, yes, the world outside is what it is, but what are we doing to change it is what matters. And in that regard, I constantly keep pushing the energy inward, saying that ask not what others are doing to you, but what you can do for others. And it's so far, I think in 2 years, we've taken on a lot of ambitious journeys, a lot of ambitious challenges. Naveen Mittalji, who was here just a bit earlier, was, I think, the responsible leader for bringing Coursera partnership to the state government universities in Telangana. So GITAM signed up with Coursera about a year ago. And we currently have about 20,000 licenses, which is coming at quite a steep price. And we are not charging this to our students. We are providing this as access. Unfortunately, out of the 20,000 licenses, maybe 80–90% of the students are using the licenses to complete a course requirement, but aren't emphasizing as much on learning. So I don't expect that change will happen overnight. But should we make an effort or not? We should absolutely keep making efforts. A lot of pushback from our own internal leaders. Why do you want to spend tens of crores on things like Coursera and other things? Why can't we invest the same money in upgrading our faculty, upgrading our infrastructure? I told them that yes, we will do that. Just because we're investing in Coursera doesn't mean we won't do these other things. But talent doesn't come overnight. And if Coursera has worked really hard over the last close to a decade and has built a platform of 4,000 courses from 150 best universities across the world, they're doing something right. And I don't think we have to break our head in trying to reinvent the wheel. Let's adopt those best practices and bring them and democratize access to learning to our students. And so while the emphasis that I've made right now is what private institution can do. And I'll pivot a little bit and speak to the governments and government leaders who may or may not be listening to this lecture here right now. As many of you are aware, higher education or education overall is highly regulated in the country. And I think the new education policy, I believe, is a step in the right direction and speaks about a lot of things that does seem to empathize with the various stakeholders and write policy that suits those needs. And I do believe that every policy that is written is well-intentioned, but uniform implementation of policy is always going to lead to challenges. As a side note, as an analogy, when it related to alcohol-related accidents, recently the Supreme Court gave a verdict that any bars or liquor stores within 500 meters of a national highway should be shut down. I think in a city like Hyderabad, where highways are outside the city and there are many locations internally, I think that judgment works fine. But in many towns where the extent of the town extends only behind 500 meters that side of the highway, that has had a very strong negative impact on the economy of that town. So I think similarly, any policy that is written is well-intentioned, but cannot cater to the diversity that exists in the country. So in that regard, my request to government organizations is that the approach so far historically has been that private institutions are guilty until proven innocent. And at every stage, they need to prove their innocence to move forward. And they need to abide by regulations and abide by rules for them to do well. I strongly differ with that argument. I do believe that there's good, there's bad, and there's people who make good and bad. But with the attempt as a government to ensure that unethical practices do not happen, the unintended outcome is that we are seriously limiting the potential of progressive organizations to aggressively grow to the top. GITAM, when we became a deemed to be university in 2007, we were at about 6–7 lakh square feet. We were self-financed through tuition, and we were in a single campus. And in the last 13 years, we have now built close to 95 lakh square feet in 3 campuses. In Hyderabad, we have acquired about 250 acres. In Bangalore, about 70 acres. None of this is with the help of government. No government has enabled us to buy this land or start this campus or build these buildings or get these loans or charge this tuition. All they have done is let us be, and that too not with too much peace. And there are occasionally the government officers and governments that empathize and that want to encourage. But if this can be prevalent, and maybe what I would recommend in order for us to achieve excellence and expansion and equity and employability is to what extent can we implement free market philosophies, in the sense that the role of the government should be not to regulate as much, but to more to rank, to build a transparent ranking mechanism that is trusted, that is reliable for everyone, and then publish these rankings to the entire country so that everyone knows who's good and bad. And the minute you can do that, I think automatically there is a race to the top. Every private institution wants to be at the top, and everyone chases excellence. And when you're chasing excellence, you're improving your faculty quality, you're improving your student quality, and everything else along with that. And I think if we can approach innocent until proven guilty instead of the other way around, I do think that a lot of private organizations will flourish. And I do think that the education sector of the country will cater to the needs of its citizens and their aspirations. At a global enrollment ratio of about 30% and 90% of students being claimed as unemployable, it's a very appalling figure. I do think that drastically things need to change, but the change needs to begin from one. I speak on behalf of GITAM that we have a strong desire to lead that change, if only we are enabled and empowered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bharat, for that message, and especially which was being directed to the government. Certainly, there were many pain points given by the institution. We'll certainly convey it, and we would also be coming up with a conference report of this conclave, which will be circulated across the government and across not just Telangana, but Andhra Pradesh, government of Karnataka, but also government of India and across the country. Thank you so much for your special address, and GITAM has been a very supportive organization throughout, and has been supporting and also being the presenting partner of this conclave. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sudhir. Thank you, everyone, for patiently listening.